Now I'll show you how you can import and export an entire database. Database files are this type of file, a PostgreSQL file. This is one that I've actually previously exported. First, I'll show you how you might export a database. So I'll take one of these existing databases I have, and I'll make it into a PostgreSQL file. So the way I do that is through the command line. There's not really any good way to do it through the pgadmin interface. And the command you use to export is the pgdump command, which is one of the executables that would have been installed with Postgres. So if I go to my Postgres in my bin, which is where my executables are, I'll find the pgdump executable. And to run this, I need to get the full path to it. Pgdump, then my user, then the name of the database, so I'll just export the test database. Then I need to make a path to the PostgreSQL file that I want to export. So if I just want to put it on my desktop, I'll just do this /test export.pgsql, like that. Actually, this U needs to be capitalized first. Okay. To import a database, the process is very similar. The first thing I need to do is create a new database where I could store my incoming database and its incoming tables. So if I just create new database, I'll just call it test3. Okay, and the command that I use to import is the PSQL command, and that's also another executable /PSQL. Then my username, and the database name to which I am exporting, so that would be test3. Then the less than sign, and then I need the path to the file I'm going to import. So I'm just gonna re-import the test export I just made. So like that. And now it's done importing. So if I refresh my databases, go to test3, and I have 3 tables. Now I'll just go through some basic SQL querying, and then I'll touch on some PostGIS querying. So I've just opened up my SQL query window, and I have a few tables in my test database. So for example, I have this DAM layer, which means roads in Mongolian. So if I just view it, this is what the table looks like, and maybe I want to make a selection. Say I just want to have only the roads displayed that are in the Hosumbuir Sum. So I could just write a simple SQL select statement. So select everything from ZAM equals where. Okay. And so now if I go to the Sum name, I only have Hosumbuir. Here I have the star, which means select everything, but say I just wanted the Sum name, the YAML name, like that, that would just select only those two columns. You can actually create a table from your query, so only what has been returned by the query will be exported as a new table, and that table will show up in your database. All you need to add is create table, let's call it newsam as. And something to note is that if you do this and you want this new table to be a spatial table, then you do need to include the geom column. Just one more simple SQL query I'll do. Let's say I have this sum boundary, and let's say I want to add in a column. So this layer comes from Alagak. So if I just want to add a column to that table, I could just use SQL, and all I need to do is alter that table, alter table, sum boundary, add column organization, text for the type, and then set for Alagak. Commit. Like that. So now I run that query. And now there's an organization column that's been populated with Alagak. Now I'll do some actual PostGIS queries. I will just start by creating a table. I'll call it points. And these are my columns, so point geometry and name. So what this is doing is it's creating this table, and it's populating it with two columns, point and name, and the point column is a geometry column. So I'll do that. Here I've just typed out a few values to enter into that table. So I'm inserting into the points table these values. This is what's going into the point column, and this is what's going into the name column. So the name column is just text, origin. And into the geometry column, point, the way this works is that point is what's known as a well-known text. So it's something that a geometry column can recognize as referring to something geometric. So point, it recognizes that point, the 0 and the 0 here represent the x and y coordinates of a point. You can also use polygon or line string. Those are also well-known text representations. So what this will do is it will create a point at 0, 0 called origin, 0, 5 called y-axis, and 5, 0 called x-axis. Something to note is that when you're entering in coordinates in this way, it will read the first coordinate as x and the second coordinate as y, and you should be very careful to take note of this, because when you're dealing with geographic coordinates, we always say north first, north or south first, and then east or west, and north or south is of course the y-axis and east-west is the x-axis. So you need to reverse the order that you would normally input your coordinates. But I'll just run the query now. Okay. And I'll just refresh it. And now I have my geometry field and the name. Now I'll just demonstrate a simple spatial query. So I will use the distance function in PostGIS to calculate distance between the points in that point table and another point that I'll input. So I'll say select name st as text. Now st as text, that's a PostGIS command, and what that does is it takes a geometry information and it renders it as text. So, and then I will use the st distance function, point and point. Okay, so the st distance function, what this is doing here is I'm inputting two parameters, the point and this new point with a well-known text of 0.55, and what it's doing is it's calculating the distance between each of these points, each of those 3 points, and this new point. So if I run that, if I see 0.5 and 0, that's 5 units away, and 0.0 and 5, that's also 5 units away from 5. So if you imagine this as a grid, you have a point 0, 5, and 5, 0, and this is 5, so that's 5 away, and then 0, 0, which would be this direction, it would be this far. So you can now just, if you would directly in PostGIS, I didn't set a spatial reference system when I exported, but if you look at this now, if I hover over this is at, if you look coordinates down here at the bottom, it's 0, 5, and this is 0, 0, and this is 5, 0. So I'll just do one more example of how you could use PostGIS to manipulate your spatial layers in your database. So I have this zoom layer, zooms in dynamic, and I have a wells layer. Now what I want to do is I want to join the zoom name onto each of these wells. So I want, when I open up this wells layer, I want there to be a column saying which one of these zooms it's located in. So this is what you'd call a spatial join. And this is something that you can do with a PostGIS function. I should mention that the column I want to join is this, the zoom names. So each of these zooms has one of these names, and I want to join this onto the wells. I have a query here made up that will do this. It will join the zoom name to each of the wells. So I'll just go through it quickly. It's saying select everything from wells with the star from the wells table, and the zoom name from the zoom boundary table from wells, and join the columns from zoom boundary onto the wells table with st within, and that's a PostGIS function. So it joins everything from one layer that's geographically within another layer. So the geometry of the wells, where they are entirely within the zoom boundary geometry, join this particular field onto the wells. And there are other similar PostGIS functions like st within. So there's an st intersects, there's an st overlaps, there's an st touches. They're all pretty similar, but I'm just doing st within because that's the one that's useful for this particular query. And I run that, and now each of the wells has a zoom name. So this would be the zoom in which that well is located. And of course I can create that as a new table if I want. So I would do create table new wells as, and then I'll demonstrate quickly what that did in QGIS. And I'll just say I have the identify tool, so let's pick this. This is matted. So if I add in this new wells layer, and let's say I select all of the wells there, and open the attribute table, and I'll just show selected features. You can see all of these wells have matad for their zoom.